Hello gang, and welcome to another episode of Displaying-Model-Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest video podcast. I'm about to kick off a new video format in which I'm going to tell you the stories behind the newest Marvel Legends and why you should care about them. And no better way to start this than with the Wolverine and Hulk 2-pack, or the Patch and Joe Fixit 2-pack. This is based on one of the most iconic covers to come out of Marvel Comics. We all know it. We've all seen it, with Wolverine and his tux leaning against big old Joe Fixit. I'm filling myself out quite well there. That's how I pose for my Tinder pictures. What's up, ladies? And then they meet me and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Anyway, this is something that I've seen 10,000 billion times, but I've never actually read the story. Until now. It all kicks off in Wolverine #7. This is from his original ongoing series written by Chris Claremont. And at this point in time, he's hiding out in Madripoor. I don't know why, but he's not so much faked his own death, but he's allowed the world to think that Wolverine is dead. And he is now Patch, which is definitely right up there with some of the world's worst disguises. It's like, dude, you're the most recognizable 5'2" Canadian with huge mutton chops and crazy hair. Putting an eye patch on, it's not going to fool many people, except it does. So he's hiding out in Madripoor, and basically he is a part of the crime family syndicate. You know, he's being a good guy. He's basically trying to police everything that's going on and not let things get too out of hand. And there's a whole bunch of supporting characters, but I ain't going to go too far into that because that's a whole big story unto itself. But essentially, he's trying to just keep a lid on things. And we open up where he's just come out of a fight with two characters that we don't have Marvel Legends of, Roughhouse and Bloodscream. These would actually be really fun additions to a Wolverine Rogues gallery. So Roughhouse, just a big, rough dude. He actually looks like the Great Antonio. For you pro wrestling deep cut superfans out there, the Great Antonio was this wrestler who Antonio Inoki beat the piss out of, for real, in a Japanese pro wrestling ring when he thought that he was being disrespected. And to be fair, the guy did kind of have it coming. So we got the Great Antonio and we got Bloodscream, who's kind of this vampire type character. They're not featured often, but you know what? We've had more obscure Marvel Legends, so I'd like to see these too. And as I say, Wolverine is trying to keep the peace in Madripoor, basically balance all the goings on with the crime families and the prime ministers and all that kind of thing. But speaking of crime families, over in Las Vegas, Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk, is working for a legitimate businessman, which is always one of those funny things that you see in media sometimes where it's like, oh, these guys, these are all bad, evil, criminal gangsters. We're working in that world too, but we're the nice ones. We don't do any crimes. And it's like, you guys need to pick a lane, okay? You're either criminals or you're not.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
But nonetheless, it would be difficult to champion and cheer for the Grey Hulk if he was working in, like, trafficking and smuggling and doing all these terrible things. So Joe Fixit's boss sends him over to Madripoor to kind of deal with some business. And that's where he and Wolverine come to blows, or at least a little bit. Wolverine kind of intercepts Joe Fixit when he arrives in Madripoor and decides he's going to use the Grey Hulk to take care of some of his own problems. And there is actually quite a fun sort of Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd kind of dynamic going on here, where Wolverine just enjoys messing with the Grey Hulk, basically. He breaks into his luggage, he messes things up for him, he ends up getting him covered in sewage, delightful. And all of these escapades result in the Grey Hulk beating the brakes off of all these different factions and crime families that Wolverine has a problem with. Because of course he's still trying to disguise the fact he's Wolverine. So he's not popping his claws, except for occasionally when he does. There's a scene where he pops his claws and fights some guys, and there's a later scene where he's like, oh, can't pop my claws, don't want to reveal who I am. It's like, dude, you just did. But nonetheless, it's a fun little two-part adventure where Wolverine is using Joe Fixit without making him look like too much of a doofus. That's a very important thing. I hate it when writers have a guest star in their comic and they're like, well, I don't really like this character very much, so I'm going to make my guy look like the cool one. Here, it's a really fun back and forth with Joe Fixit just being this grumpy curmudgeon and Wolverine putting him through his paces. What's kind of funny, though, is that in no point in this two-part story do either one of them wear exactly what they're wearing in this iconic comic book image. Wolverine does have his white tux for a very, very short period of time, just in a quick bar scene. But the Hulk, never exactly what appears on the front cover. We have one bit where he does walk into a bar and he's wearing kind of a full white tux with white trousers as well. That's as close as we get to that, and that doesn't even last very long. He's quickly got that suit all messed up and shredded, so it's a very fleeting moment. And then after that, the rest of the adventure is mainly Wolverine in his civilian clothes and Joe Fixit in his classic blue suit, which if you want to recreate that, that's super easy. You can get the Joe Fixit figure, which is beautiful. He's one of my favorite Marvel Legends from last year. And the two of them have their adventure, continuously with Wolverine delighting in making Joe Fixit's life a bit of a misery, especially because he realizes what the gimmick is with Joe Fixit, where he turns back into Bruce Banner in the daytime. So there's one part where they rescue all these ladies from a slaver's ring, and then they're about to go and party with them, and then Grey Hulk wakes up the next evening and realizes that he fell asleep and it was Bruce Banner who was having all the fun with Logan and these women. And it's like, that's kind of fun. I do love the duality of the Grey Hulk, how he resents Bruce Banner so much. So then it all comes to a conclusion where the two of them destroy a drug cartel manufacturing ring. And it's essentially Wolverine doing minimal effort, but again, kind of Wile E. Coyote tricking the Grey Hulk into doing the dirty work for him. And then finally, at least, Grey Hulk gets a measure of revenge where at the end, Wolverine's like, hey, sorry about all that, but you got what you wanted, you dealt with your business, and I got to clear up a few loose ends as well. So Hulk gives him a good old gamma-powered sock in the chops. So you feel like, okay, we're sort of even now. And that's what Grey Hulk thought as well when Wolverine took him to the airport. And then we find out that once Wolverine puts him on the plane back to Vegas, it turns out that it's actually a flight to England in broad daylight. So he turns straight back into Bruce Banner, and Banner gets to enjoy the first class service on the way to England. And Grey Hulk's like, damn you, Patch! Because I guess he doesn't realize that he's Wolverine. I mean, hey, maybe that eye patch is a better disguise than I think people realize. And that is the story about Grey Hulk and Patch in their two white tuxedos. Never actually has the image that it's based on, but that's just one of those funny things. I guess the artist was like, this looks cool. Doesn't perfectly mirror what's going on, but it is what it is. I always assumed that there was a story with those two were like bouncers or something like that. I always thought there was a much more meat on the bone as far as that image goes, but actually, no, it's just the cover, really. Having said that though, my goodness, Marvel Legends team have done a good looking job with these two figures. The only caveat, though, is that, of course, you can't cross their arms. And at first I was thinking, well, it's not fair to give them, a negative point for that, because it's how are you going to do that? You just can't bend the plastic. And then a few people have said, actually, what they could have done, which I think SH Figure Arts have done with their Dragon Ball Z characters, is given them molded crossed arms that you can actually clip on so you can have that pose. If they had done that, that would have been a real nice touch. That notwithstanding though, it's still a pretty gorgeous looking 2-pack, so I give them credit for that. I feel like it's not an essential purchase because it only really mirrors a very short little story, and even then it's only the cover. Nonetheless though, if you're talking iconic covers, they don't get more iconic than that. And guys, that does it for my first explanation video as to why you should buy this particular Marvel Legend. If you guys like this, then in the next one, I'm going to do Red Suit Angel with the feather wings. Why is this an important figure that you need in your collection? And what's the story behind it? So gang, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
Coffee, big time.